blood pressure, she checked my body fat and so on, until she reached my testicles. Now I swear, in my 8 years of hormonal replacement therapy, I had to see a lot of doctors already, endocrinologists, urologists and so on. I've already had to show my balls to at least 10 different people, but I have never had my testicles mistreated like that cunt. She pinched my What's up folks, it's Uranus from Brussels. Welcome to another video. So doctors can be really helpful and understanding, but they can also be uptight and cocky, especially specialists in hormones, aka endocrinologists. Since my pituitary gland decided to take a lifelong holiday, I had to see a lot of doctors and endocrinologists in my life, and I've been on HRT for 8 years and I've seen my fair share of horror stories. So here are 4 times I really had an awful experience and I was shocked at what I got. Let's get to it. Number 4 has got to be the very first endocrinologist I saw. I was 26, almost 26, and I still needed to go through puberty, and I was a very shy kid. So I got into his office, he looked at my blood work, and the very first 2 questions he asked me was if I was on crack, heroin or any other hard drugs, and he asked me multiple times if I had a micro penis, which I didn't have. Now those are still valid questions for a doctor, even they could have been a bit more tactful. I remember I had a lot of tests with that endocrinologist. It was in a local hospital, and at one point I spent half a day in the hospital there lying in a bed because they wanted to inject me with a product called LHRH. It's luteinizing hormone releasing hormone. The goal was to inject that into me and then check if my pituitary would react every 30 minutes. Now the idea was fine, but they put an IV in me to take blood and to inject the product. The thing is, they put an IV on both of my arms. Normally you only need one arm. So basically I was like this for like 4 hours with an IV in both my arms, and I couldn't even hold my iPad to watch a movie or anything like that. I never understood why they put 2 IVs in, because the other one they never used it, so it was basically done for nothing. That's also the same place they started on my very first TRT protocol of 250 milligrams of testosterone every 3 weeks. So I had a total testosterone level of 80 nanogram per deciliter before starting, and my very first dosage was 250 milligrams of TRT. Not ideal. The guy also for some reason would not believe that I have a sense of smell. This can be quite relevant for Kalman syndrome, but when you have a sense of smell, you know it. I can literally smell it when the guy on the other side of the street right there is smoking weed. I literally have a radar for recognizing smells. When I have a business meeting in the morning, I will literally smell if one of those guys sitting there did not have a freaking shower. I literally smell everything in my life, good or bad. But yeah, apparently I can't smell. In the same freaking hospital, I once had blood drawn there in their lab, and it was the most painful needle insertion I had ever had. I don't know if the guy was new, but he was shaking quite a lot, and when he was taking my blood, I thought he hit a bone or something, something definitely felt off. And the very next day my arm was completely blue. Well, not completely, but as you can see on the picture, it was quite blue and not normal at all for a blood test. I've had blood drawn probably about 100 times after that, and I've never had that issue. I don't know what the hell that guy did, but my arm was painful for 4 or 5 days, and since then I lost a bit of trust. So when nurses are telling me that I need to look away when they're taking blood, I don't. I need to see what they're doing. Anyway, moving down to number 3 is when I went for a regular checkup in the second hospital I was being treated for. And for some reason the assistant wanted to do a full body checkup. Normally they don't do that, as I was already under treatment there for about a year and I was going for regular checkups every 3 months. But she was new, she read my file, and she wanted to do a full body checkup before I saw the endocrinologist. It's one of those places where you first have 30 minutes or 45 minutes with an assistant, and then if you're lucky you get to see the endocrinologist for just about 5 minutes. So anyway, she did the stethoscope thing, she checked my breathing, my heart, my blood pressure, she checked my body fat and so on, until she reached my testicles. Now I swear, in my 8 years of hormonal replacement therapy, I had to see a lot of doctors already, endocrinologists, urologists, and so on. I've already had to show my balls to at least 10 different people, but I have never had my testicles mistreated like that fucking cunt. She pinched my left testicles so freaking hard I almost screamed. So I was in pain for 2 full days after that, and I couldn't even work out. So I have a varicocele, a varicose vein on my left testicles, and it's always a little bit painful, so you have to be careful. It needs to be handled with care and delicacy. Something that assistant obviously did not have. That's the same place they told me estrogen is only relevant for women, and they prescribed me a selective estrogen receptor modulator called tamoxifen instead of an aromatase inhibitor like Arimidex. Moving down to number 2, and this actually happened in exactly the same place, but this time with the endocrinologist herself and not with the ball pinching assistant. So I'm one of the very few humans who are selected to not grow through puberty at the appropriate time during their teenage years. My pituitary was completely messed up at birth, and because of family bullshit and bullying, I only went for treatment once I was 26 years old. Yeah, I know, I messed up. So my body was completely underdeveloped, and I blindly trusted my doctors because I didn't know any better at the time. This is what I looked like after losing 30 kilograms. So they asked me if I was exercising, and I said yes. I work out 4 or 5 days per week. I already lost a lot of weight and a lot of fat. They then asked me if I was taking any supplements, and I told them yes. After my workouts, I'm taking a whey protein shake from Optimum Nutrition. Then suddenly out of nowhere they started talking to me about the usage of anabolic steroids, AAS, and that most supplements are actually contaminated with anabolic steroids and so on. I told them the brand I'm taking, Optimum Nutrition, is known worldwide and is completely safe. They then printed me a really long document about the usage of anabolic steroids and contaminated supplements. Next thing I know, they're accusing me of taking steroids. They're accusing me of having my hormonal issues because of the usage of exogenous supplements. A 26-year-old kid with a body like that, exogenous supplements. I still have that document somewhere here in my drawer. So they actually wrote this in my medical file that was supposed to be sent to my GP, my general practitioner, but since I didn't have one, I put my home address in the details, and I was receiving all of the files. And I can tell you, when I opened the letter and I read the file, I reached boiling point. You know, I trusted these people with a problem I had been waiting for 26 years to talk about with somebody because I was too shy, and they actually did this. How could they be so damn stupid? The day I read that letter was definitely the day I lost confidence in our medical systems. Exogenous supplements, my ass. Then finally number 1, and this is number 1 because it physically made me feel like crap. So I had an endocrinologist put me on HCG monotherapy for the first 2 years of my transformation. It's not a bad idea. It got my total testosterone levels between 800 and 900 nanograms per deciliter, and I was going through puberty with my own testicles doing the work. So HCG monotherapy definitely had its ups and downs, but this is not why it's number 1. Cold turkey is the reason why this is number 1. Every time I went for a checkup with this doctor, he wanted me to stop my treatment 2 or 3 weeks before going to the office and having new blood drawn, because he wanted to see if by any magic my HPTA, the link between your brain and your testicles, my HPTA had never worked before, and he wanted to see if magically it would suddenly start to produce LH and FSH. Now HCG has a really short half-life, so after the end of the first week I was already feeling like shit because I had stopped my treatment. I was finally going through puberty, and I was constantly scared that they were going to cut me off treatment. Cold turkey actually means that you're stopping your treatment abruptly without any help. If you're on TRT or you're on HCG monotherapy or whatsoever and you stop abruptly, you will feel like crap because your testosterone levels will completely fall. You can actually feel worse than before you started treatment because now you don't have any testosterone in your system whatsoever. The reason they wanted me to stop my treatment weeks before going for a checkup was also completely stupid, because when you give exogenous hormones to someone like TRT or HCG monotherapy, that person will no longer naturally produce testosterone. I never produced any testosterone naturally because taking exogenous hormones is suppressive on the HPTA. So it wasn't very smart and I had to restart my treatment every time. So after the 3 weeks, I restarted my treatment and I had all the side effects again of estrogenic peaks and so on. Now, I'm definitely not the only one out there that had to feel like crap because suddenly their doctor decided to put them off treatment. Recently, I saw a man that went to a TRT clinic and that had to stop TRT suddenly for 7 weeks because their new endocrinologist wanted to measure their baseline levels. So yeah, it can be a really pretty wild ride finding a good doctor for hormones and HRT, and it's a shame because hormones literally dictate your life dramatically. Please share with me in the comments your worst experience with doctors or endocrinologists, and I know some of you have pretty good horror stories to share. One of my subscribers was recently prescribed 50 milligrams of TRT per month. Per month, guys, 50 milligrams. I personally consider that dosage to be a criminal offense. Trust me, I've read some really awful horror stories out there. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments. Subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one. Uranus out.